Hello everyone, and welcome to this interview. In this video, my grandpa, Don Post Jr., former owner of the company Don Post Studios, talks about former studio locations, specialty prop replicas, and profit theory. Enjoy!
We were on Cleon, and then we moved up onto Burbank Boulevard, and that's when we were kind of on the upswing again as a company. We were there for a couple of years, and my dad bought a building in Burbank, and we moved the company there. And we were there for several years, kind of outgrew that. And then we moved back into North Hollywood, but up at Lankershim Boulevard. And then we had like 10,000 square feet of space. It was a big enough building that for 6 months out of the year, it was too big. And for 6 months out of the year, it was too small because we were very busy. And the Don Post Studios, I mean, it started out very small with no capital behind it. And we grew fast enough that we never had capital. We never had the money to really do what needed to be done. So it was a struggle.
Was that your last stop? That was your last location?
Well, no, we were on Lankershim, and at that point then, you had some good years and some bad years. And the one thing people don't realize about a business is you can make money. And people would say, well, how much profit are you making? Well, profit is a theory. And sometimes you can make money, but if you can make 20% on your stuff, that means that you can have other times where you could lose up to 80%. So when businesses, they say, well, this business, they have too much money. Well, it takes capital to run the business. And if you don't have it, you're always on the edge. So at that point, then I merged the company with another company. And eventually then we moved offshore to produce the stuff because the customers, they wanted more margin. They wanted a bigger hunk of the pie. So it forces you to move off. And people think, well, you're moving offshore to make more money. Well, that's not exactly it. It's that your retailers, they want to make a certain amount of money, and they want to buy it at a certain price. And that price may be lower than what you can make it for and survive here. So then that's why a lot of people go overseas to make stuff, because people don't want to pay a bigger price for it. So, eventually, if people are saying, well, all these companies are moving offshore, it's the fault of the buyer.
You said you moved offshore. Where did you move on to?
I had a partner at that point, and we went to Malaysia, which is where the latex comes from. We started doing some stuff in China, and then we're doing half the things in Malaysia and half in China. Mm-hmm. Really, in some cases, what that was is we do all the latex casting in Malaysia, and then we'd send all that stuff to China to get finished. And then the mask would be finished in China, and then it would be packed up in another container and shipped to the United States.
So anywhere after China did you ever get back to the States, or is that just...
Nope. That was really where it ended up. You're just forced to make something at a certain price. And with masks are very, very labor intensive. Everything that you do with the mask is done by hand. So you can't build machinery to make a mask,
Yeah.
We're probably 100 years away from that. Some of the very high-end stuff, we still did some production in the U.S. And at one point, partner I had, he was getting older and he wanted to retire, so he was trying to set the business up so it could be sold. So all of a sudden he would let me do things that otherwise he wouldn't have. And so we ended up made the prop replicas,
Yeah.
and a lot of that stuff was made in the U.S. It was made in the U.S. We supervised it. Your uncle did a great job of quality control, and we made some really notable items, I think. And as time goes on, those items get a little bit rarer